I'm 34 years old, a cardiology resident, and the single mother of twin 3-year-olds. 8 weeks ago, I found myself in an emergency room with internal injuries from a collision. My hands trembled as I reached for my phone. I desperately needed someone to look after Emma and Ethan while surgeons worked to save my life. Instead of support, I received a group message that shattered everything I thought I knew about my family. The text read, "You've always been nothing but trouble and a drain on us. We're seeing a concert with Jessica tonight. Handle this on your own." So I did exactly that. From my hospital bed, I contacted an emergency child care service, paid an overnight premium rate, and made a choice that would reshape my entire world. I stopped all the financial support I'd been quietly providing for nearly a decade. The mortgage transfers, the insurance coverage, the repair bills, everything disappeared overnight. 14 days later, someone knocked on my front door. Before I reveal who was standing there and what unfolded next, I want to say something. If this story connects with you, I'd appreciate your support through a like or subscription. Leave a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time zone you're in. I genuinely love hearing from all of you. Now let me take you back to where this all started. Growing up in the Morrison household, I learned early that affection operated on a ranking system. My older sister Jessica held the top position. She always had. 3 years my senior, naturally stunning, possessing this magnetic energy that made our parents beam whenever she entered a room. When she announced her dream of becoming a fashion designer, our mother wept tears of joy. Our father called her his little visionary. When I shared my ambition to practice medicine, my father simply nodded and said, "That's sensible." That was the entirety of his response. Sensible. I convinced myself it didn't matter. I immersed myself in textbooks, excelled at every examination, and fought my way into one of the nation's premier medical schools. 4 years of undergraduate studies, 4 years of medical school, 3 years of residency focusing on cardiology. The day I completed medical school should have ranked among the proudest moments of my existence. My parents showed up 2 hours behind schedule. "Apologies, sweetheart," my mother said, avoiding direct eye contact. Jessica had an urgent meeting with a potential investor. We had to drive her there first. No flowers, no celebratory meal, just a hurried photograph in the parking area before they rushed away because Jessica needed emotional reassurance after her business meeting. Compare that to Jessica's first fashion showcase 3 years prior. The entire family flew to New York City, 5-star accommodations, front row seating. My father posted 17 photographs on social media with captions declaring how proud he was of our talented girl. I received a parking lot snapshot and a lukewarm congratulations. I told myself it made sense. Fashion is cutthroat. Jessica required more encouragement. Medicine is stable. I could manage independently. But what I didn't understand then was that my parents' favoritism extended beyond emotional support into something far more tangible, and I was the one funding it all. It began 8 years ago, right after I finished medical school. My father called one evening, embarrassment thick in his voice. "Listen, we're in a tight spot financially. The mortgage payment is coming due and things are stretched thin this month. Could you help us out just this one time? Just this one time?" I transferred $2,400 that same night without hesitation. They were my parents. Of course I would help. But that single instance became every single month. First the mortgage, then their health insurance premiums at $800 monthly after my father's employer dropped their coverage. Then the emergencies started, car repairs, roof leaks, furnace replacements. I never refused, not once. When I became pregnant with the twins and their father abandoned us during my 5th month, I called my parents from the hospital after a frightening bleeding complication. I was terrified, completely alone, desperate for any kind of support. "Oh, honey, we wish we could be there," my mother said, "but Jessica is incredibly stressed after her Milan show. She really needs us right now. They didn't come, not for the delivery. Not during the first month when I was barely sleeping, nursing 2 infants while preparing for my board examinations. But those automatic bank transfers kept processing. $2,400 for the mortgage, $800 for insurance, whatever else they requested. I maintained a detailed spreadsheet. I'm not sure why. Perhaps some part of me needed to see the reality in concrete numbers. The total was staggering. 8 years, $320,000, approximately. I never demanded gratitude. I never expected recognition. But I also never anticipated being called a drain on them by the very people I'd been supporting for nearly a decade. That moment of truth was approaching. I just didn't see it coming yet. The collision happened on a Tuesday evening. I was heading home after a 60-hour shift. My eyes felt heavy, but I remained alert. The traffic signal turned green. I proceeded into the intersection. I never saw the delivery truck. It ran the red light at 50 miles per hour. The impact crushed my driver's side door. Glass shattered everywhere. Metal shrieked. The world spun violently, then went black. I regained consciousness in an ambulance. Searing pain tore through my abdomen. A familiar face hovered above me. It was Dr. Nathan Cooper, an emergency physician at my hospital. We'd worked together for 2 years. Nathan, my voice came out weak and distorted. What's happening? You were in a serious accident. We're transporting you now. Possible internal bleeding. You're going to need emergency surgery. Surgery? The word hit me like a second collision. My children. I grabbed his arm desperately. Emma and Ethan. They're with the babysitter. She leaves at 8. Nathan checked his watch. It's 7:15 now. 45 minutes. I had 45 minutes to find someone to watch my children while doctors operated on me. I fumbled for my phone with trembling hands. Blood smeared across the screen as I pulled up my parents' contact. It rang 4 times before my father answered. Yeah? His voice carried impatience. We're about to head out. What do you need? Dad, please, I need help. The words tumbled out between gasps of pain. I was in an accident. They're taking me to the hospital for emergency surgery. Please, I need you and Mom to watch the twins, just for a few hours. Silence filled the line. Then I heard him say, hold on. Muffled voices followed. My mother's tone was sharp and annoyed. Jessica's laugh echoed in the background. The call went quiet. Then my phone buzzed with a notification. Family group message. The text was from my mother. You've always been nothing but trouble and a drain on us. We're seeing a concert with Jessica tonight. We've been planning this for months. Handle this on your own. I read it twice, then 3 times. The words remained unchanged. A second message appeared from my father. You're a doctor. You're familiar with hospitals. Don't make this more dramatic than it needs to be. Then Jessica's response, not words. Just a laughing emoji. That was it. That was my value to them. A laughing emoji while I lay bleeding in an ambulance. Nathan was watching me. I didn't realize he could see my screen until he spoke. What did they say? His voice was careful. I couldn't answer. Something had broken open inside me, and it wasn't just the internal bleeding. I need to borrow your phone, I whispered. Mine's dying. He handed it over without question. I searched for emergency child care services, found one with 24-hour availability, called them, and explained the situation in clipped professional sentences. Yes, I would pay triple the standard rate. Yes, I would provide the current babysitter's contact information for handoff instructions. Yes, I authorized immediate payment. It was handled in 4 minutes. Nathan was still watching me when I returned his phone. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. Can you screenshot those messages from my phone before it dies? I asked. He nodded slowly. Yeah, I can do that. I closed my eyes as the ambulance pulled into the hospital bay. The pain was overwhelming now, but it wasn't coming from my abdomen anymore. From that hospital bed, with a Roman IV line in my arm and fear gripping my heart, I made the easiest decision of my entire life. The surgery lasted 4 hours, ruptured spleen, severe internal bleeding. Another few minutes and I might not have survived. I spent 5 days in the hospital, 5 days of Roman 4 medications, pain relief through a haze, nurses checking my vital signs every few hours. Not one call from my parents, not one text message, not one visit. The emergency child care service was expensive, but worth every cent. They coordinated with my regular sitter, kept Emma and Ethan safe and fed, sent me daily photo updates. Complete strangers took better care of my situation than my own family. On day 3, I asked the nurse for my laptop. "Are you sure you're up for this?" She asked. "You should be resting." I need to take care of something. My hands were steady as I logged into my banking application. 8 years of automatic transfers stared back at me, regular as clockwork. $400 on the 1st of every month, $800 on the 15th. I canceled every single one. Then I opened my phone settings and blocked my father's number, my mother's, Jessica's. There was no dramatic moment, no tears, no second. Guessing. It felt like setting down a weight I'd been carrying so long I'd forgotten it was there. Nathan stopped by later that afternoon. He'd checked on me every day, bringing coffee and quiet companionship. "How are you feeling?" he asked. I looked up at him, and for the first time in years I told the complete truth. Better. For the first time in 8 years, I actually feel better. He didn't push for details. He just nodded like he understood perfectly. I knew the consequences were coming. My parents would notice the missing money. They would rage and cry and demand explanations. But I didn't expect what happened next. 2 weeks after my surgery, I was finally home, moving slowly, still sore but alive. It was a Saturday morning. I was making pancakes for Emma and Ethan, their favorite weekend treat. The kitchen smelled like butter and maple syrup. Ethan was attempting to stack his toy blocks. Emma was helping by knocking them down. Then came the knock. 3 sharp raps on my front door. I wiped my hands on a dish towel, my heart rate accelerating. If it was my parents, I wasn't ready. I didn't know if I'd ever be ready. I looked through the peephole and my breath caught. Standing on my doorstep was a tall man in his 70s, silver hair, neatly groomed, sharp blue eyes that I remembered from childhood. A posture that still carried the authority of 40 years on the federal bench. Grandpa William. I hadn't seen him in almost 3 years. My parents always had excuses for why we couldn't visit. Too busy, too far, too inconvenient. I opened the door and he pulled me into an embrace so tight it made my surgical incision ache. "Sweetheart." His voice was rough. "Let me look at you." He pulled back, his eyes scanning my face, then dropping to where my hand rested protectively over my abdomen. "I know everything," he said quietly. "Margaret told me. Aunt Margaret, my mother's younger sister, the only person in the family who'd ever openly questioned how my parents treated me. Grandpa, I don't." He held up a hand. "You don't need to explain anything, but I do need you to come somewhere with me." He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope, cream-colored, elegant, formal, an invitation. "My 70th birthday celebration next Saturday. The entire family will be there." His eyes met mine, and there was something fierce in them. "And I have some things that need to be said." Grandpa William sat at my kitchen table, watching Emma and Ethan with a soft smile. They'd warmed to him immediately, showing off their toys, demanding his attention. He gave it freely. "They look just like you did at that age," he said. Same determined chin. I set down 2 cups of coffee and took the seat across from him. "Grandpa, how did you find out about the accident? About everything?" "Margaret called me the night it happened." He wrapped his hands around the mug. "She'd heard through one of your cousins when she told me what your parents did." He stopped, his jaw tightening. "I've watched this pattern for years. The way Helen and Richard treat you versus Jessica. I'm old, but I'm not blind." I stared at my coffee. I thought maybe I was imagining it. making it bigger than it was. You weren't. His voice carried the weight of a man who'd spent decades separating truth from lies. I was a federal judge for 40 years. I know how to read people. I know what favoritism looks like, what exploitation looks like. He leaned forward. Tell me something. Do you still have records of the money you've sent them? I nodded slowly. Every transfer, 8 years' worth, good. He sat back. I want you to put together a summary. Every payment, every date, every amount. Why? Because at my birthday celebration, in front of the entire family, I intend for the truth to come out. His eyes were still. Not as an attack, not as revenge, simply as facts, and facts, as I learned in 40 years on the bench, have a way of speaking for themselves. My hands trembled around my mug. What if they hate me? The ones who matter won't. He reached across and squeezed my hand. And the ones who do never deserved you in the first place. The next 2 weeks were a blur of preparation. I printed every bank statement, every transfer confirmation. 8 years of financial records organized chronologically, bound in a plain folder. Looking at it all together was staggering. Month after month, year after year. A river of money flowing in one direction. Aunt Margaret came over 3 days before the celebration. She was 50, 5 sharp-tongued, and had always been the family's truth. Teller, refusing to pretend everything was fine when it wasn't. She flipped through the folder, her expression darkening with each page. $360,000. She said flatly, "Do you understand what this represents? I know. This is more than most people earn in 7 years of full-time work." She set down the folder. "And they called you a drain on them." I pressed my palms against the kitchen counter. "I don't want to destroy the family, Aunt Margaret. I just want them to see, to acknowledge what I've done. You're not destroying anything." She stood and put her hand on my shoulder. "You're just ending the lie. They built their comfortable life on your silence. You're not obligated to keep giving them that." I nodded, though my stomach churned with anxiety. What if everyone takes their side? Some might. Family is complicated. She shrugged. "But your grandfather has considerable influence. And more importantly, you have the truth. That matters more than you think." That evening, I received a text from a cousin I barely spoke to. "Heard you and your parents had a falling out. Jessica's been telling everyone you've been acting unstable since your accident. Just wanted to give you a heads up." I stared at the message. They were already constructing their narrative, painting me as irrational, preparing their defense before I even arrived. I hadn't wanted a confrontation, but it seemed they were bringing one anyway. Grandpa Williams' house was a colonial estate on 3 acres of manicured grounds, white columns, wraparound porch, the kind of place that whispered old money and quiet authority. I pulled into the circular driveway, my hands tight on the steering wheel. Emma and Ethan were in their car seats, chattering about the big house and the balloons they could see through the windows. More than 40 vehicles lined the property. The whole family was here. I wore a simple navy dress. Professional, understated. I wasn't here to create a scene. I was here to speak the truth. The folder was in my bag. Inside, the celebration was already in full swing. Waiters circulated with champagne. A string quartet played in the corner. Crystal and silver glinted under chandelier light. I spotted them immediately. My parents stood near the fireplace, Dad in his best suit, looking distinguished. Mom in a cream-colored dress, laughing at something someone said. They saw me at the same moment. Mom's laugh died. Dad's face went rigid. For a long moment, none of us moved. Then Jessica appeared. My sister glided over in a designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly student loan payment. Her smile was perfect. Her eyes were ice. "Oh, there you are," she said, kissing my cheek. "You made it. We heard about your accident. Nothing too serious, I hope." I met her gaze steadily. A ruptured spleen and internal bleeding. I almost died. Her smile flickered. Mom said it was just a fender bender. Mom wasn't there. I shifted Ethan to my other hip. None of you were. Jessica's composure cracked for just a second. Then she recovered, patting my arm with false sympathy. Well, you look fine now. That's what matters. She drifted away, but I felt the first rumble of thunder approaching. This was only the beginning. The attack came 30 minutes into the celebration. I was getting fruit punch for the twins when I heard Jessica's voice, deliberately loud, carrying across the room. I'm honestly so worried about her. She was talking to a cluster of aunts and cousins near the dessert table. The accident really affected her. She's been saying the strangest things, cut off all contact with Mom and Dad for no reason. I kept my back turned, but every word landed like a small blade. My mother joined in, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. We've tried everything, calls, texts. She won't respond. I think she's having some kind of breakdown. Poor thing, someone murmured. She's always been the sensitive one. Jessica added, remember how dramatic she was as a teenager. I think the stress of being a single mom has just been too much. I felt eyes on me, pitying looks, whispered concerns. I said nothing, just handed Ethan his juice cup and smoothed Emma's hair. Aunt Margaret appeared at my side, her voice low and furious. They've been laying groundwork all week, calling relatives, planting seeds. They know something's coming, and they're trying to discredit you first. I know. Are you okay? I looked across the room at my grandfather. He was watching the scene with an unreadable expression, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He gave me the smallest nod. I'm fine. I told Margaret, let them talk. The room quieted suddenly. Someone clinked a glass. Grandpa William rose from his chair. At 70, he still commanded attention like the courtroom judge he'd been for 4 decades. Every eye in the room turned to him. Before we continue with the festivities, he said, his voice carrying effortlessly, I have a few things I'd like to say. The air changed. This was it. Before Grandpa could continue, my father stepped forward. Dad, wait. His voice was controlled, but I could see the tension in his jaw. Before you say anything, there's something the family should know. Grandpa raised an eyebrow. Richard? Dad turned to face the room, every inch the concerned parent. As many of you may have heard, my daughter has been going through a difficult time. He gestured toward me with a sad smile. After her accident, she's been confused, distant. She's cut off contact with her mother and me completely. Mom stepped up beside him, still clutching that handkerchief. We've only ever wanted the best for her, she said, her voice trembling. But she's been spreading terrible lies about us, saying we abandoned her, that we don't love her. The room was silent. I felt 40 pairs of eyes boring into me. We've tried to be patient. Dad continued, but it's been heartbreaking. We gave that girl everything, everything. She's even been claiming we refused to help her during her accident. Jessica added from across the room, which is absolutely not true. There must be some kind of misunderstanding. Someone near me let out a sympathetic murmur. The poor things. I stood frozen. Emma had buried her face in my neck, sensing the tension. An aunt I barely knew approached me. Honey, is everything okay? Your parents are so worried about you. I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came. Then Grandpa William's voice cut through the room like a gavel. Are you finished, Richard? The question was quiet, mild even, but every person in that room heard the steel underneath. Dad's confident expression faltered. I just thought the family should know. The family should know the truth. Grandpa interrupted, and I intend to give it to them. Grandpa William walked to the center of the room. His gait was measured, deliberate. The walk of a man who had presided over hundreds of cases and never once lost control of his courtroom. I've listened to your concerns, Richard, he said. Helen, Jessica, you've painted a very clear picture of a troubled young woman who's turned against her loving family. He paused, letting the words hang. Now I'd like to ask some questions. Dad shifted uncomfortably. Dad, I don't think this is the place. This is exactly the place. Grandpa's voice didn't rise, but it hardened. This is family, and families should know the truth about each other. He turned to my father, Richard, a simple question, who has been paying the mortgage on your house for the past 8 years. The color drained from Dad's face. What? Your mortgage? $2,400 a month for 8 years. Who's been paying it? We. Dad's eyes darted to Mom. We pay our own mortgage. Do you? Grandpa reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out the folder. My folder? Because I have here a complete record of bank transfers from her account to your mortgage company. Every month for 96 consecutive months. A murmur rippled through the room. That's a misunderstanding. Mom stammered. She offered. We never asked. I'm not suggesting you held a gun to her head. Grandpa said calmly. I'm simply establishing facts. He opened the folder. Let me share some numbers with the family. I think they'll find them illuminating. Across the room, Jessica had gone pale. Dad's hands were clenched at his sides. Mom looked like she might faint, and I stood there holding my children, my heart pounding as the truth finally began to surface. 8 years. Grandpa William read from the folder. Let's break it down. The room was utterly silent. Even the string quartet had stopped playing. Mortgage payments, $230,400. He looked up. That's the house Richard and Helen live in. The house they claim they pay for themselves. Someone gasped. Health insurance premiums, $76,800. When Richard's company dropped their coverage, she picked up the bill. He flipped a page. Car repairs, home maintenance, emergency expenses, approximately $45,000. Another page. Cash gifts and financial support for Jessica's fashion ventures. $12,000. He closed the folder. Total, $364,200. Give or take. The silence was deafening. Aunt Margaret stepped forward. For context, everyone, that's more than most people make in 7 years of full-time work. She did this while completing her medical residency and raising infant twins alone. She offered. Mom's voice cracked. We never forced her. No one said you forced her. Grandpa replied. But I am curious, in 8 years of receiving this support, how many times did you say thank you? No answer. How many times did you visit her in the hospital after her twins were born? Still nothing. How many times did you show up for her? My mother started crying. Not the delicate, sympathetic tears from earlier. Real, ugly sobs. We thought she was fine. Dad said, his voice hollow, she never complained. She always managed. She managed. Grandpa repeated, because she had to, because you taught her that her needs didn't matter. An uncle near the back shook his head. Jesus, Richard, $360,000, and you called her a drain on you. Dad flinched like he'd been struck. But Grandpa wasn't finished. There's one more thing the family should hear, Grandpa said. He pulled out his phone, adjusting his reading glasses. 2 months ago, she was in a car accident. A serious one. She was bleeding internally and being rushed to emergency surgery. From the ambulance, she called her parents. Her children were home with a babysitter who was about to leave. She needed someone to watch them for a few hours. He paused, looking directly at my parents. This is the text message she received in response. From Helen. I'll read it exactly. He cleared his throat. You've always been nothing but trouble and a drain on us. We're seeing a concert with Jessica tonight. Handle this on your own. The room erupted. Oh my God, someone breathed. That's not. You're taking it out of context. Jessica said desperately. There is no context. Aunt Margaret snapped. That makes abandoning your daughter during a medical emergency acceptable. We didn't know it was serious. Dad shouted. Did you ask? Grandpa's voice cut through the chaos. Did you call her back? Did you come to the hospital? Silence. The answer, for those wondering, is no, no, and no. A woman I recognized as a distant cousin stepped away from my parents, her face twisted with disgust. Several others followed. My mother was sobbing uncontrollably now. I didn't mean it like that. I was frustrated. I didn't think. You didn't think your daughter might die. Grandpa finished because you never thought about her at all. He turned to face the room. I'm not asking anyone to pass judgment. I'm simply presenting facts. What you do with them is your own choice. He looked at me finally, his eyes soft. Sweetheart, is there anything you'd like to say? I hadn't planned to speak. I'd come here expecting Grandpa to handle everything, to let the facts speak for themselves while I stood silently in vindication. But looking around the room at my crying mother, my shell, shocked father, my sister's crumbling facade, I realized I had something to say after all. I handed Ethan to Aunt Margaret and stepped forward. I didn't come here for revenge. My voice was steadier than I expected. I came here because Grandpa invited me, and because for 34 years I've been living with a version of my family that wasn't real. A version where I was the strong one, the reliable one, the one who didn't need anything. I looked at my parents. I believed you when you said Jessica needed more support because her industry was harder. When you said I could handle things on my own, I believed you, and I tried to be what you needed me to be. A tear slid down my cheek, but I didn't wipe it away. But that night in the ambulance, bleeding and terrified, I finally understood. I wasn't strong to you. I was convenient. I wasn't reliable. I was exploitable. And no matter how much I gave, it would never be enough to make you see me the way you see her. Several family members had moved closer to me. An aunt touched my arm. A cousin nodded with tears in his eyes. My father started to speak. Listen, I'm not finished. He stopped. I don't hate you. I said quietly. But I can't keep pretending this is okay. I can't keep buying love that should have been free. An uncle across the room turned to my father. How could you, Richard? This whole time you've been living off your daughter while treating her like nothing. The room was turning. I could feel it. So what now? Dad's voice was desperate. You've humiliated us in front of the whole family. Are you happy? I shook my head slowly. I'm not happy, Dad. None of this makes me happy. I took a breath. But I'm also not sorry, because this isn't about humiliation. It's about honesty. For the first time in 8 years, our family knows the truth. Not your version, not Jessica's spin. The truth. Jessica tried once more. This is ridiculous. You're acting like we're monsters. We're your family. Families help each other. You're right. I turned to face her. Families do help each other. So where were you when I was pregnant and alone? Where were you when I was raising newborns while studying for boards? Where were you when I was bleeding out in an ambulance? She had no answer. I looked back at my parents. From now on, I won't be sending money. Not because I can't afford it, but because financial support should be a gift, not an obligation. And it should flow both ways in a family that actually cares about each other. My mother reached toward me. Please, I'm also not cutting you off forever. I continued, but I need space, real space, not a few weeks of guilt, tripping followed by everything going back to normal. I need you to actually think about what you've done. And if someday you can acknowledge it, really acknowledge it, maybe we can rebuild something. I took Ethan back from Aunt Margaret. But I won't hold my breath. A great aunt approached me, taking my hands in her weathered ones. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I had no idea. All these years I thought you were the one who had it easy. I know. I said softly. Everyone did. That's how it was supposed to look. My parents left the celebration early. No one stopped them. No one said goodbye. Dad helped Mom to the car while she sobbed into his shoulder. Jessica followed with her head down, refusing to make eye contact with anyone. The silence they left behind was heavy, but not uncomfortable, more like the quiet after a storm passes. In the days that followed, the fallout was swift. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from relatives. Cousins I'd barely spoken to in years reached out to apologize. Aunts and uncles who'd always believed my parents' narrative of the perfect family were reevaluating everything. I always thought you were the difficult one. Cousin Rachel texted me. Jessica made it sound like you pulled away for no reason. I'm so sorry I believed her. The family group chat, the one where I'd received that devastating message, went silent. Then it was deleted entirely. More significantly, my parents found themselves quietly excluded from family gatherings. When my cousin Michael had his 40th birthday 3 weeks later, they weren't invited. When Aunt Margaret hosted Easter brunch, their names weren't on the list. No one made a formal announcement. No one declared sides. They simply stopped being welcome. My mother called me from a new number 2 weeks after the party. I let it go to voicemail. "Please, we need to talk. This has all been blown out of proportion. Your father is devastated. I'm devastated. Can't we just move past this?" I listened to it once, then deleted it. Forgiveness wasn't a reset button. I knew that now. It was a release for me, not for them, and I wasn't ready to release anything yet. But the financial consequences were just beginning. 3 months after the celebration, I got a call from Aunt Margaret. "They're selling the house." I set down my coffee cup. "What? Your parents? They put the house on the market last week. Word is they couldn't keep up with the mortgage payments." I should have felt something. Satisfaction, vindication, maybe even guilt. Instead, I just felt tired. Where will they go? "Your Uncle Frank is letting them stay in his guest house temporarily." Margaret paused. "He made it very clear it's conditional. They need to get jobs, real jobs, not just waiting for someone else to bail them out. Jobs. My parents hadn't worked full-time in years. Dad took early retirement at 55. Mom had never worked outside the home. They'd been living off my money, and they hadn't even realized how dependent they'd become. What about Jessica? Can't she help?" Margaret laughed. It wasn't kind. "Jessica's been drowning since her divorce. Word got out about the party. Someone in the family knows someone in fashion. She lost a major design contract. Last I heard, she's waitressing part-time." I stared out my kitchen window at Emma and Ethan playing in the backyard. "I don't want them to suffer," I said quietly. "I know you don't, sweetheart. That's because you're a good person." Margaret's voice softened. "But they didn't suffer for 8 years because you were supporting them. They didn't grow. They didn't learn. You stopping wasn't cruel. It was necessary." She was right. I knew she was right. That evening, I sat down with my new budget. The $200 I used to send my parents every month now went into a college fund for the twins. They'd never worry about student loans. They'd never carry someone else's burden the way I had. That felt like justice enough. The call came on a Tuesday night, 6 months after Grandpa's celebration. I was putting the twins to bed when my phone lit up with an unknown number. Normally I'd ignore it, but something made me answer. "Hello." Jessica's voice was different, smaller. The polished confidence that had always defined her was gone. "Please don't hang up." She took a shaky breath. "I know I don't deserve your time, but I need to say something." I sat down on the edge of my bed. "I'm listening." "I'm sorry." The words came out cracked. "I'm so sorry for everything, for the way I treated you, for the things I said, for laughing at that text message when you were." Her voice broke. "When you were dying." I laughed. "What kind of person does that?" I waited. I didn't know. She continued about the money. "Not all of it. I knew Mom and Dad were struggling, but I thought they were managing. I didn't realize it was you. For 8 years. How did I not know?" "Die."